I know that the dinner is wonderful and you are enjoying the fantastic taste. But right now we are going to create dessert for you, and that is going to be fantastic conversation between Rebecca and me, but a little bit longer. I think 2-3 hours we can talk. Right now we are very much relaxed, and you are going to enjoy in such a dialogue between us. Rebecca is, her parents came from Poland, and she has a kind of Jewish origin from Poland, and coming in wonderful country in Costa Rica, one of the most beautiful country in the world. And she's economist, one of the brilliant economists we have nowadays, not only in the system of United Nations, in the global arena, but she started to work in politics, if I understand well, with my very close friend, Jose Maria Figueres, who has been president of Costa Rica. And he was the first person who explained to me how she was important for him. And I never met her when I talked with Jose Maria Figueres, but I was expecting to see who is that person right now. And right now I'm really privileged to have an opportunity to talk with Rebecca about future of the world and economic foundation of the world. Right now she is running UNCTAD, but before that she was serving in different institutions, always connected with development and economy. And I think Rebecca is the right person with whom we can talk about future of the world in terms of economy, development, challenges we are facing with. And I have to ask a few things, Rebecca, and to make this dialogue, I think, very important. My first question, Rebecca, is, do we have a future or not?
Absolutely, we have. Yes, we have a future. And I think that it can be very exciting because there are many opportunities to really bring a better life to millions of people in the world. That opportunity is there. The real question is if we will have the political will and the collective action to make that happen. And it's a question mark. I am not saying it's a destiny. I am saying it's a choice. But I believe that when you see the technological advances that we have had, the breakthroughs, the possibilities of all the technologies that are in the frontier right now, probably the world have never had such an opportunity as we have today to make life better for everybody. At the same time, it has the possibility of destruction, yes? You can use AI not for good, but for bad. You can use AI for military purposes and for destruction. But that has always been so in the world, no? Technologies also have always had the dual possibility of doing harm or doing good. And it will depend on what we do together and also on the capacity that we will have in the multilateral system to put the frameworks that will be adequate for technology and for the world to act in a more humane and rational way at the same time. So I am not a pessimist, And I remember very well a very important person in my life that did tell me once that, you know, Rebecca, this thing about optimist and pessimist and all the jokes about we optimists. And he said, you know, pessimist and optimist die the same, but they live different. And I think that that's the real thing, you know? The real thing is if we will live different to make this promise possible.
We are always asking ourselves about technological development and the impact of that technology on our lives. But the question is how big and specific impact technological development has in economy and in political system, political leadership. What do you think about that? Are we going to be faced with tremendous changes, technological impact in the leadership, running countries, media sector, communication in general? What we can expect in that field?
Let me go to the economy, and then let me go to the second question. With respect to the economy, if we look at the world right now, yes, we see that the only real sector that is driving investment is AI. Even within this huge uncertainty that we are living, that has stopped investment in many fields, and the numbers are really not good. You know, I can give you, you know, in 2024, foreign direct investment went down 11%. And there are very priority sectors for the well-being of people really suffered a lot. I will give you two numbers on this. Water and sanitation went down 30%. Food investment, agri-food investment went down 19% in foreign direct investment. So there are very priority sectors that they didn't make it well in 2024, and there is no reason to believe that it will be different in 2025, where uncertainty is even higher. But the exception is AI. AI investment is driving the US economy and is driving investment globally. There are two sectors that have gone up, digital and AI, and the other one, interesting, is health. Because of the demographic change, health investments are very important, and so in the developed countries, health investments continue to grow. So, and if you look at trade, 60% of the growth in trade comes from services. So there is this restructuring of trade, of international trade, from goods to services. And services have been the dynamic sector within trade. So there is no doubt that high quality and high value services and investment in new technologies have been driving a lot of the global economy in the last years. The problem is that, first of all, this is an average, it's an aggregate, and it doesn't tell the story for everybody, yes? As I said today in the morning, 2.6 billion people still don't have any connectivity to internet. And we have still hundreds of millions of people that are not connected to energy. And we have 3.4 billion people that live in countries that spend more in servicing the debt than on health or education. So if we think about, you know, bringing or achieving the SDGs and a better life for everybody, we can see the gaps and the people that are being left behind, even in an era of such technological advances and the acceleration of technology. So the distributive effects of these new technologies obviously are not even, and the question is if we really will be able to close the gaps instead of widening the gaps, and if the opportunities will be able to be shared more equitable around the world. And I think that the judgment is out there. It's not clear to me that we will be able to mobilize the system and the changes in the system that will allow for a better outcome for everybody. And that's why the financing for development in Seville was so important, because in the past, when we talked about financing, because this is about resources, yes? It's about the capacity of these countries to leapfrog, is the possibility to build the skills, is the possibility to build the infrastructure, because this is the only way in which the diffusion of technology can be accelerated. It's about that, yes? How do we accelerate the diffusion of technology? And skills and infrastructure are two main pillars to be able to do that. And for that, you need financing and you need resources. So the difference, what I think was different in Seville and was important, is that in the Financing for Development conferences of before, we put a lot of emphasis first on aid, and aid is going down, yes, and the capacity or the possibility of aid going up, I think that is very slim, yes. Investment in defense is going up and ODA is going down. So, but in the past, we put a lot of emphasis in ODA and also in the mobilization of private capital. So this, the mobilization of private capital continues to be very important, but what we learned in the last 10 years from Addis Abeba to Seville is that the mobilization of private capital won't happen in terms of going to the places that need it most if we don't help them get there. If we don't bring the multilateral development banks to crowd in private investment, to bring down the risk perception, to have instruments to take off the risk from the table, so investment will go to the more mature markets, like it has happened, you know, during these last 10 years. And so Seville really put more attention on the systemic issues and what are the things that we have to do to be able to bring more capital, more financing to the places where that is not happening, because it doesn't happen by the invisible hand. You know, it doesn't happen automatically. We believe that the market will be able to do it, and we have to help the market to, you know, to blend capital and to be able to bring the public's global side of it with the private capital, with the private sector. It's true that public sector don't have enough capital to do the job alone, but what we have learned is that private capital alone, even if they have enough resources to do it, they don't go to the places that need it most. And so is this combination, this partnership, and this capacity of the global institutions with private capital, the ones that will be able to make a difference. And I hope that we have learned that lesson and that we will be able to mobilize much more financing at scale to the countries that really can make it happen, but don't have the capacity alone to make it themselves.
I think that we cannot separate technological impact on economy and technological impact on leadership. I mean, this is synergy, and this is why I was asking you about your view regarding impact on politics and leadership. And after that, impact of politics, which is going to be enriched, more powerful with technological improvement in economic sphere.
Yeah. You know, when I was younger, I believed more in institutions than in leadership. And I remember thinking about this. You know, I thought when I was much younger that this issue of leadership was a very American thing. That they always emphasize more the leadership side and not the institutional side. Yeah? And coming from Costa Rica, where institutions have been so important, I believe much more in institutions than in leadership. I have changed. I now believe much more in leadership than only in institutions. I'm not saying institutions are not important, but we have discovered, yes, with time, that the wrong leadership can destroy institutions very quickly, even quicker than we expected in the past. So that is a change, you know, when I think about myself and what has changed the most in the way I see the world, I would say that now I believe in good leadership in a very strong way. Now, with technology, having good leadership is becoming more difficult, no? You know, today, Gordon Brown was saying that we have more disinformation than information in the world of today, that the capacity that we have to really discern from good information and bad information and be able to fight disinformation and convince people of the good deeds that we need to do together is more difficult today than it was before. And the phenomenon of populism and nationalism and probably individualism is stronger today than it was before. So leadership is more difficult, but I think that is more necessary than ever to be able to drive in the right direction.
We are talking always about artificial intelligence and development in that sphere or investments in that sphere, but I'm always repeating on these forums that something is foundation of artificial intelligence. This is neuroscience. The researches in neuroscience are more fundamental than artificial intelligence, which is in fact machine learning. And as a machine learning process, artificial intelligence has their limits. But researchers in neuroscience are creating a game changer. And if more we are discovering the way how people are thinking, creating decisions and attitudes, we are going to be in a more difficult situation in terms of leadership, in terms of democracy, in terms of common values, in terms of those things that are very important for all of us. And finally, my question I'm asking myself, I was growing up in a democratic family, and I was taught that democracy is a superior process. of organization of society. But do we have the dilemma about that question? I mean, if we are taking into account Chinese success, the country that eradicated from the poverty more than 800 million people, and also some other countries, for example, Vietnam, who is very, very successful in economy. Do we have a dilemma about impact of democracy, impact of the sophisticated dictatorship, or authoritarian models, and also if we are taking into account technological impact on both systems?
It's a difficult question because I remember in 2013, we came about with a human development report when I was in UNDP about the Global South. And the term of Global South, and you know, that is now also under scrutiny, let's put it that way. And the reason why we call it Global South is because there was, because the South was not anymore a taker of policy or a passive voice in the global arena, but it was emerging as a new force. And because the South wanted to be the global part of Global South, is global in the sense that it had a voice. And so it has emerged as asking for a more inclusive and a different world that will take them into account, not as passive voices, but as active voices. But part of that reflection was about the different paths for development. Because at the end, for many years, there was this really recipe of one-size-fits-all kind of thing, where development was thought in only in the way and the path that Europe has done it before, or the US. And so I think that part of this discussion of the emergence of the Global South was also a discussion of different paths for development and different systems, different systems of governance. Now, if you ask me, I have democracy in my veins, yes. I come from a country that has been a democratic country for more than a century, and that has fought for democracy, that has been a voice for democracy. And obviously, for me, democracy is an essential part of freedom. Not because democracy is perfect, but because when it doesn't deliver, we can change it. We can change the government. It's not about perfection, it's about the capacity to change the government that you don't want or the situation that you don't want. But it's true that there has been brewing dissatisfaction with democracy. Because when democracy doesn't deliver for everybody, so you start with an uneasiness within the democratic system, but you can end up with a dissatisfaction not within democracy, but with democracy. And I think that we have to think very carefully to maintain democracy and to strengthen democracy. We have to think very carefully if we are delivering within the democratic system with respect to the demands of the population. And when I discuss with many of my colleagues and politicians of my own region, when we see the weakening of many of the democratic institutions, we have to be honest enough to criticize ourselves. You know, also to ask ourselves if we have done everything from the political point of view, if we have done everything to really deliver within the democratic system, if we have been hearing people, because many times we haven't heard. We were so convinced that we were doing the right thing, that we stopped hearing, that we stopped listening to the population. So I think that we have to fight for democracy, that we have to fight for freedom, but we have to be also self-conscious of our own mistakes.
We are finishing that conversation with this statement. Thank you, Rebecca. I think that Rebecca is deserving huge applause and support. Thank you so much. I enjoyed our dialogue. Thank you.
Thank you so much.